You will recall that he showed up first thing this morning to answer the charges of sexual harassment against him. Not the legal charges of sexual harassment, by the way, but the, in her belief, the findings of sexual harassment against him, and said in some very early hearings that he could not believe why Professor Anita Hill had made these charges against him. He denied them all. And then for much of the day, the Senate Judiciary Committee has been questioning Professor Hill about her history of her relationship with him, her history of employment in Washington, and what they hoped they would find in some cases some inequities in her testimony. We're going to be joined by a number of people as we wait for Judge Thomas now to be questioned by the committee. Let's go to Capitol Hill and ABC's Jim Wooten, who is standing by. Jim, just sort of bring us up to date, if you would, on the mood there this evening. Those hearings with Professor Hill ended about an hour and 15 minutes ago.
Well, basically, I think people are exhausted here, both senators, members of the committee, staff, press, because it has been such an extraordinarily grueling day for Ms. Hill, I think for members of the committee, and yet the question that seems to be on everyone's mind, of course, is who's telling the truth. Judge Thomas, said none of these things happened. Ms. Hill, in a very detailed, painfully detailed statement, said, of course, they did. That's what's on people's minds. Who's telling the truth? Some people have decided, some people haven't.
Well, thank you, Jim. Most of the questioning today for the Republican side of the host, that, of course, is Judge Thomas, and that's his wife there. And if the configuration is the same as this morning, Senator Danforth, his chief sponsor in the Senate, will show up. There's Senator Biden, the chairman of the committee. Democrats outnumber the Republicans here. Most of the Republican questioning done today by Senator Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania. Senator Specter joins us now briefly, just as we wait for the hearings to begin. Senator, it sounded at the end today in your summation as if you simply did not believe Professor Hill.
Well, she put it very well herself when she said, in retrospect, it's hard to understand. But she said that he made the reprehensible statements, and then she moved with him from the Department of Education, where she could have stayed and held her job. She went to EEOC. She at first denied that she had made telephone calls to him, but when confronted with the logs, she conceded that she had. She had a long association with him where she drove him to the airport and maintained contacts over the years, which is pretty hard to understand if Judge Thomas made all those outlandish, reprehensible, offensive statements.
Somebody made the point, Senator, that all of those telephone calls amounted to about 1.5 phone calls per year. And in reference to the telephone calls, she made the point they were not personal but professional. Do you not agree with any of that?
Well, the logs showed that they were personal calls. The logs showed that she called him up and said, I'm going to be in town for a few days, and left her hotel room. The logs showed that she called him up and said, I'm sorry that I missed you on my trip in. If somebody has done the scurrilous things which Judge Thomas is reputed to have done, why would anyone maintain any contact at all? And here you have a woman who is an experienced lawyer in charge of protecting women from sexual harassment, and then testifies that the nation's chief law enforcement officer on sexual harassment is harassing her and does nothing about it. So,
Senator, a number of the experts, so-called experts anyway, on sexual harassment say that this is quite often typical behavior for a victim of harassment, and that they still continue to feel someone has power over them. Do you buy any of that?
Well, I think there's a lot to that, and sexual harassment is a very difficult issue, and there's a lot of it that's going on, and this case really brought it out. But long after he had power over her, she was calling him up. She
Senator,
was driving him to the airport.
I hate to interrupt you, but I think you have to go, sir, because the hearings have begun.
Completely understandable.
Let's listen to Senator Biden.
1 hour tonight, 30 minutes on each side. Am I correct in that?
That's right.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Senator, I would like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today that suggested in any way that I had conversations of a sexual nature or about pornographic material with Anita Hill, that I ever attempted to date her, that I ever had any personal sexual interest in her, or that I in any way ever harassed her. A second, and I think more important point, I think that this today is a travesty. I think that it is disgusting. I think that this hearing should never occur in America. This is a case in which this sleaze, this dirt, was searched for by staffers of members of this committee, was then leaked to the media, and this committee and this body validated it and displayed it at prime time over our entire nation. How would any member on this committee, any person in this room, or any person in this country would like sleaze said about him or her in this fashion, or this dirt dredged up, and this gossip, and these lies displayed in this manner? How would any person like it? The Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity. I think something is dreadfully wrong with this country when any person in this free country would be subjected to this. This is not a closed room. There was an FBI investigation. This is not an opportunity to talk about difficult matters privately or in a closed environment. This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
We will have... Yeah. Would you like to say anything?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator from South Carolina.
I have named Senator Hatch to cross-examine the judge and then those who are supporting him. So Senator Hatch, you and I take over.
As I understand it, it was, you don't go to...
That's correct. I think we would start with Senator Heflin and then go to Senator Hatch.
Sure,
That's perfect.
sure. I think that's the way I was... I'd be happy to do it, but I think that's the way I was told.
Senator Heflin.
Judge Thomas, in addition to Anita Hill, there have surfaced some other allegations against you. One was on a television show last evening here in Washington, Channel 7. I don't know whether you saw that or not. You didn't see it. It was carried somewhat in the media, print media today, but it involved a man by the name of Earl Harper, Jr., who allegedly was a senior trial lawyer with the EEOC at Baltimore in and around the early 80s. Do you recall this instance pertaining to Earl Harper, Jr.?
I remember the name. I can't remember the details.
The allegations against Mr. Harper involved some 12 or 13 women who claim that Mr. Harper made unwelcome sexual advances to several women on his staff, including instances in which Mr. Harper masturbated in the presence of some of the female employees. The allegations contain other aspects of sexual activity. The information you have is that the General Counsel of the EEOC, David Slate, made a lengthy internal investigation and found that this had the effect of creating a intimidating, hostile, and offensive working environment. And that on November the 23rd, 1983, you wrote Mr. Slate a memo urging that Mr. Harper be fired. Mr. Slate eventually recommended dismissal. Then the story recites that you did not dismiss him, that you allowed him to stay on for 11 months, and then he retired. Does that bring back to you any recollection of that event concerning Mr. Earl Harper, Jr.?
Again, I'm operating strictly on recollection. If I remember the case, if it's the one I'm thinking of, Mr. Harper's supervisor recommended either suspension or some form of sanction or punishment that was less than termination. When that proposal, his supervisor initially was not David Slate. When that proposal reached my desk, I believe my recommendation was that for the conduct involved, he should be fired. The problem there was that if the immediate supervisor's decision is changed, and I believe Mr. Harper was a veteran, there are a number of procedural protections that he had, including a hearing, and of course he had a lawyer, and there was potential litigation, etc. I don't remember all of the details, but it's not as simple as you set it out. It was as a result of my insistence that the General Counsel, as I remember, upgraded the sanction to termination.
Do you know a congressman by the name of Scott Klug, a Republican congressman who was defeated Robert Kastenmeier from Wisconsin, who now serves in Congress, who back in the early 80s, 83 or something, was a television reporter for a channel here in Washington, and that he, at that time, disclosed this as indicating that after the recommendation of dismissal, that you did not move in regards to it for some 11 months and let him retire. Do you know Congressman Klug?
I do not know him. Again, I remember I'm operating on recollection. There was far more to it than the facts as you set them out. His right had much to do with the fact that he was a veteran and that we could not simply dismiss him. If we could, that was my recommendation, he would have been dismissed.
There was no political influence brought to bear on you at that time to prevent his dismissal. Do you recall if any political influence?
Absolutely no political influence. In fact, it was my policy that no personnel decisions would in any way be changed or influenced by political pressure, one way or the other.
Now, it's reported to me that Congressman Klug, after your nomination, went to the White House and told this story, and that I hear by hearsay that the White House ignored his statement, that Congressman Klug further came to the Senate Judiciary Committee and made it known here, and that as far as I know, I attempted to check, I hadn't been able to find where it was in the Judiciary Committee, if it was, and I think the chairman has attempted to locate. But the point I'm asking is, in your process pertaining to the nomination and the preparation for it, were you ever notified that Congressman Klug went to the White House in regards to this?
I don't remember that, Senator.
Nobody ever discussed that?
No.
Well, that's the way it's been reported to me, and it's very fragmented and relative to it. But I have asked that all the records of the EEOC be subpoenaed by subpoena ducis tecum pertaining to that, in order that we might get to the bottom of it.
Interrupt, Senator Heflin. I really think this is outside the scope under the rules. I would have to object to.
I would have to sustain that objection. I do not.
I hesitate to object, but I just think we ought to keep it on the subject matter.
I do not see where it's relevant.
Well, I think it is relevant in the issue pertaining to period of time relative to the issue, and particularly in regards to the responsibilities as head of the agency dealing with discrimination in employment.
If I may say, let me speak. If I may say, this is not about whether or not the judge administered properly or improperly the agency. The only issue here relates to conduct and the allegations that have been made. So I would respectfully suggest to my friends from Alabama that line of question is not in order, and I rule it out of order.
All right, sir. I'll reserve an exception, as we used to say. Now, you, I suppose, have heard Professor Hill, Ms. Hill, Anita F. Hill, testify today.
No, I haven't.
You didn't listen?
No, I didn't. I've heard enough lies.
You didn't listen to her testimony?
No, I didn't.
On television?
No, I didn't. I've heard enough lies. The day is not a day that, in my opinion, is high among the days in our country. This is a travesty. You spent the entire day destroying what it has taken me 43 years to build, and providing a forum for that.
Well, Judge Thomas, we have a responsibility, too. And as far as I'm involved, I had nothing to do with Anita Hill coming here and testifying. We're trying to get to the bottom of this, and if she is lying, then I think you can help us prove that she was lying.
Senator, I am incapable of proving the negative. It did not occur.
Well, if it did not occur, I think you are in a position with certainly your ability to testify to, in effect, to try to eliminate it from people's minds.
Senator, I didn't create it in people's minds. This matter was investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in a confidential way. It was then leaked last weekend to the media. I did not do that. And how many members of this committee would like to have the same scurrilous, uncorroborated allegations made about him and then leaked to national newspapers and then be drawn and dragged before a national forum of this nation to discuss those allegations that should have been resolved in a confidential way?
Well, I certainly appreciate your attitude towards leaks. I happen to serve on the Senate Ethics Committee, and it's been a sieve.
Well, but it didn't leak on me. This leaked on me, and it is drowning my life, my career, and my integrity. And you can't give it back to me, and this committee can't give it back to me, and this Senate can't give it back to me. You have robbed me of something that can never be restored.
I know exactly how you feel.
Judge Thomas, one of the aspects of this is that she could be living in a fantasy world. I don't know. We're just trying to get to the bottom of all of these facts. But if you didn't listen and didn't see her testify, I think you put yourself in an unusual position. You, in effect, are defending yourself. And basically, some of us want to be fair to you, fair to her. But if you didn't listen to what she said today, then that puts it somewhat in a more difficult task to find out what the actual facts are relative to this matter.
The facts keep changing, Senator. When the FBI visited me, the statements to this committee and the questions were one thing. The FBI's subsequent questions were another thing. And the statements today, as I received summaries of them, were another thing. It is not my fault that the facts change. What I have said to you is categorical, that any allegations that I engage in any conduct involving sexual activity, pornographic movies, attempted to date her, any allegation, I deny. It is not true. So the facts can change, but my denial does not. Mr. Hill was treated in a way that all my special assistants were treated. Cordial, professional, respectful.
Judge, if you're on the bench and you approach a case where where you appear to have a closed mind and that you are only right, doesn't it raise issues of judicial temperament?
Senator, there is a big difference between approaching a case objectively and watching yourself being lynched. There is no comparison whatsoever.
All right.
And he has personal knowledge of this as well, and personal justification for anger.
Judge, I don't want to go over this stuff, but of course there are many instances in which she has stated, but and in fact, since you didn't see her testify, I think it's somewhat unfair to ask you specifically about it. I would reserve my time and go ahead and let Senator Hatch ask you and then come back.
Senator Hatch.
Okay. Judge Thomas, I've sat here and I've listened all day long. And Anita Hill was very impressive. She's an impressive law professor. She's a Yale Law graduate. And when she met with the FBI, she said that you told her about your sexual experiences and preferences. And I hate to go into this, but I want to go into it because I have to. And I know it's something that you wish you'd never heard at any time or place. But I think it's important that we go into it. And let me just do it this way. She said to the FBI that you told her about your sexual experiences and preferences, that you asked her what she liked, or if she had ever done the same thing, that you discussed oral sex between men and women, that you discussed viewing films of people having sex with each other and with animals, and that you told her that she should see such films, and that you like to discuss specific sex acts and the frequency of sex. What about that?
Senator, I would not want to accept being required to here to dignify those allegations with a response. As I said before, I categorically deny them. To me, I have been pilloried with scurrilous allegations of this nature. I have denied them earlier, and I deny them tonight.
Judge Thomas, today, in a news statement, in addition to what she told the FBI, which I have to agree with you is quite a bit, she made a number of other allegations. And what I'd like to do is, some of them most specific were for the first time today in addition to these, which I think almost anybody would say are terrible. Now, I'd just like to give you an opportunity, because this is your chance to address her testimony. At any time, did you say to Professor Hill that she could
Cordial toward and felt positive toward and hopeful for her career, and I may have, on occasion, and I can't remember any specific occasion, picked up the phone just to see how she was doing. But again, the calls that you have there are the calls that are reflected, or that reflect her inability to get in touch with me when she had called, as opposed to the instances in which she was able to contact me successfully.
Judge Thomas, before this day, have you seen Professor Hill on various occasions since she left the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission?
Yes, Senator, as I indicated, I recall seeing her, I'm certain of one time, and perhaps twice, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And on one of those occasions, it is my recollection that we had dinner with Charles Cothe. We also had Charles Cothe, the dean of.
So was she there at that dinner?
She was at the dinner. We also had, we being Anita and myself, breakfast with Charles Cothe at his house. I usually slept at Charles Cothe's house, and I believe she drove me to the airport. And for some reason, I seem to remember that she had a Peugeot. I could be wrong on that. But I remember her being very proud of it because, to my recollection, she did not have a car in Washington.
I see. These, in addition to all the phone calls, you had these contacts and these meetings. How would you describe these meetings?
Very cordial, positive, always one. It's, as I treat my other special assistants, I tend to be the proud father type who sees his special assistants go on and become successful and feels pretty good about it. It would be that kind of a contact, as well as her telling me how her teaching assignments were going. Indeed, that was similar to the conversation, again, that I would have with my other special assistants, or former special assistants.
Overall, how would you characterize the nature of your contacts with Professor Hill since she left the EEOC in 1983?
They've been always very cordial and very positive, Senator.
Any unpleasantness?
Never.
Any problems ever raised?
No, Senator.
Any questions about your conduct?
No, Senator.
Can you think of any reason for her efforts to continue to try to be associated with you?
Senator, could you repeat the question, Senator?
Well, can you think of any real reason why she would want to continue these cordial professional relationship with you, or this cordial professional relationship with you?
Senator, I would hope it would have been for the same reasons that all of my other special assistants did, that I was very supportive of them. The people that, some of whom you will hear from today, who've flown in, certainly at their own expense, they feel warmly toward me and have a sense of loyalty, and feel that I will help them and that I will assist them as best I could. And I believe that that was a part of the reason, and we certainly enjoyed a cordial and professional relationship.
Well, before you first heard of Professor Hill's allegations during this confirmation process, did you have any reason to believe that she was unhappy with you?
Senator, on Tuesday, on September 24th, the day before I heard from the FBI, I would have told you, if you asked me, that my relationship with Anita Hill was cordial, professional, and that I was very proud of her for all she'd done with her life and the things that she had accomplished.
Judge Thomas, this is your fourth confirmation in 9 years, isn't that correct?
Yes, Senator. It's either my... Yes, Senator, it is.
In fact, 3 of those confirmations occurred, I guess they were after, including this one, occurred after these allegations, at the time of the allegations by Professor Hill.
Actually, this, Senator, would be the fourth on the...
That's right, isn't it? It would be
this
the fourth.
would be the fourth.
So she actually has known you through 4 Senate confirmations. 4 of them.
This is the fifth.
No, this is the 4th. Through 4 Senate confirmations, right?
That's right.
And none of those have been very easy, have they?
That's right. Now that I think about it, none of my confirmations, aside from the first one, was easy.
And you had your critics in each and every one of them, didn't you?
That's right.
Do you remember the details of each of those calls that were made that we went over? Or do you just remember them generally?
I remember the calls generally, Senator. I don't remember the specifics of each call. That's been quite some time.
Well, let me just say this. I've kept everybody too long, and I know we can continue tomorrow. But I'd like to ask this question just to end the day with, and I think it's an important question. I have to say, cumulatively, these charges, even though they were made on all kinds of occasions, I mean, they're unbelievable that anybody could be that perverted. I'm sure there are people like that, but they're generally in insane asylums. What was your reaction when you first heard of these allegations against just the first allegations, not all these other ones? And then you can tell me your reaction when you've heard of these ones that were brought forth the first time today.
Senator, when the FBI informed me of the allegation, the person first, there was shock, dismay, hurt, pain, and when he informed me of the nature of the allegations, I was surprised, disbelief, and again hurt. And I have reached a point over the last 2 weeks plus, I've reached a point that I can't go over each and every one of these allegations again. As I said in my statement this morning, that when you have allegations of this nature by someone that you think have thought the world of and felt that you've done the best work, it is an enormously painful experience. And it is one when you ask yourself, you rip at yourself, what could you have done? And why could this happen? Or why would it happen?
How do you feel right now, Judge, after what you've been through?
Senator, as I indicated this morning, it just isn't worth it. The nomination isn't worth it. Being on the Supreme Court isn't worth it. There is no amount of money that's worth it. No amount of money that can restore my name. Being an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court will never replace what I've been robbed of. And I wouldn't recommend that anyone go through it. And this has been an enormously difficult experience, but I don't think that that's the worst of it. I'm 43 years old, and if I'm not confirmed, I'm still the youngest member of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. I'll go on. I'll go back to my life of talking to my neighbors and cutting my grass and getting a Big Mac at McDonald's and driving my car, seeing my kid play football. I'll live. I'll have my life back. And all this hurt has brought my family and I closer, my wife and I, my mother. But that isn't, so there's no pity for me. I think the country has been hurt by this process. I think we are destroying our country, we are destroying our institutions, and I think it's a sad day when the U.S. Senate can be used by interest groups and hate mongers and people who are interested in digging up dirt to destroy other people and who will stop at no tactics when they can use our great institutions for their own political ends. We are gone far beyond McCarthyism. This is far more dangerous than McCarthyism. At least McCarthy was elected.
Judge, I have a lot of other questions to ask you, and I think they're important questions. And I think you deserve the opportunity to tell your side of this. And you've done it here so far. And I have to tell you, this has come down to this. One woman's allegations that are 10 years old against your lifetime of service over that same 10-year period. I've known you almost 11 years. and the person that the good professor described, not the person I've known. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow and about what went on there and about how this could have happened, how one person's allegations, uncorroborated, nobody else, it's all private, according to her, could tend to destroy a career and one of the most wonderful opportunities for a young man from Pinpoint, Georgia. Something that I think has lifted almost everybody up till these allegations were unfairly disclosed by someone on this committee and or their staff, maybe on this committee. Mr. Chair.
I repeat what I said. I have been hurt by this deeply, and nothing is worth going through this. This has devastated me. It's devastated my family. It's untrue. They're lies. I have hundreds of women who work with me. You can call them. Dozens who work closely with me on my personal staff. You can call them. You can bring them up, give them as much airtime as you've given this one person with uncorroborated, scurrilous lies and allegations. Give them as much time. See what they say. But it's not just that, Senator. It's more that's happened. You are ruining the country. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, anytime, over any issue. Our institutions are being controlled by people who will stop at nothing. They went around this country looking for dirt, not information on Clarence Thomas, dirt. Anybody with any dirt, anything, late night calls, calls at work, calls at home, badgering, anything, give us some dirt. I think that if our country has reached this point, we're in trouble, and you should feel worse for the country than you do for me.
I feel bad for both. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I've kept this over a little bit. I wish I could proceed even further tonight, but I think we'll wait till tomorrow morning. I know everybody's dead tired. I'm sure you're dead tired. I know that. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving me this extra time. You've always been courteous and decent, and frankly, you've run this committee through this whole process in a courteous and decent way, including you ran it right with regard to the FBI report as well. And we on this side know that. So thank you.
Let me, before we go, Judge Heflin reserved
Just
some of his
ask
time.
one or
and then we
two
will-
questions now. Judge Thomas, you described Anita Hill and your relationship with her up until you heard on September, I believe you said 24th. It was cordial, positive, had no trouble with her in any way. Now, you make rather strong statements. Do you think that Anita Hill is lying?
Senator, I know that what she's saying is untrue.
Now, what do you think that her motivations are to come here and testify?
Senator, I have agonized over that. I've thought about it. I've thought about why she would say these things, why she would come here, why it would keep changing. I don't know.
Well, if you don't know, you see, we in the committee have a responsibility to figure out if she's not telling the truth, why? Is when you worked with her, did you feel that she was a zealous civil rights supporter who was willing to consider and be only a one-interest individual?
Senator, I cannot characterize her that way. I've not thought about her that way. But I would like to address what you said before that. I think you have more than an obligation to figure out why she would say that. I think you have an obligation to determine why you would allow uncorroborated, unsubstantiated allegations to ruin my life.
Well, she has testified you, in an effect, act as a character witness for her. You have testified here about the relationship, her work, and her reputation. And here we are trying to get to the bottom of it, is what the facts are. And we want to know what the truth is. You knew her probably better than any one of us.
Senator, there are others that you could bring as witnesses. I have suggested to you there are dozens of people who work there.
Well, I think you've made a point, and I hope that they are brought here.
We are. We're agreed already.
But we still faced with the fact, Judge, that if she's lying, why?
Senator,
We are still faced with the fact, if she's telling a falsehood, what is the motivation? Now, we've watched her testify today, and she's a meek woman.
that is not as I remember Anita. Anita is, I can say that, and you can ask others who visit here, Anita would not have been considered a meek woman. She was an aggressive debater. She stood her ground. When she got her dander up, she would storm off. I would say that she was a bright person, a capable person. Meek is not something, a characterization that I would remember.
Well, you say when she got a dander off, she'd stalk off.
Well, she was a good debater. She fought for her position. I don't remember her as being someone who was a pushover.
Well, was she a vindictive woman?
I think, Senator, that she argued forcefully for her position, and I took it as a sign of immaturity, perhaps, that when she didn't get her way, that she would tend to reinforce her position and get a bit angry. I did not see that as a character flaw or vindictiveness.
Did she have any indication to you that she wanted to be a martyr in the civil rights movement?
Senator, I can't answer all those questions. What I've attempted to do here is simply say to you that you indicated that she was meek, and suggesting that she was not an aggressive, strong person. I remember Anita as aggressive, strong, and forceful in advocating the positions that she stood for. And again, there are others who worked with her, and I suggest that you have them come before this committee and you ask them. With respect to why, as I have sought through my own memory and my own recollection of what could possibly have happened, particularly at EEOC, the change in position where she was no longer my top assistant or my top aide, and she became one of many, and perhaps, and certainly not the most senior, and not the one who received the better assignments, and later not becoming the top assistant. That could have been a basis for her being angry with me, but that doesn't seem to be too much of a basis. I don't know, Senator. If I knew, I would not have been as perplexed as I am.
Well, did she ever show signs of being resentful?
I can't remember, Senator. I know that she's shown signs that she was upset when she did not get her way. But again, I'm not going to sit here and attempt to criticize her character. I can only say that during the time that she worked with me, she was not perfect, but there seemed to me to be nothing that would suggest that she would do this to me.
Well, did she at any time during the time that she worked with you as at the EEOC, which most of the allegations, at the Department of Education, where most of the charges that she makes against you pertaining to remarks about pornographic films and pornographic materials, and then she says they continued some, but there were more at that time. She was your attorney assistant, as I understand.
Attorney advisor.
Did you at that time ever notice anything about her that would indicate to you that she was out of touch with reality?
Senator, again, that's 10 years ago, and my working relationship with her, she was professional and cordial, as I suggested this morning. It did not involve, and as I've indicated, any discussion of pornographic material or any attempt to ever date Anita. I view my special assistants as charges of mine. They're students. They're kids of mine, and I have an obligation to them. That's the same way I feel toward interns and individuals, co-ops, or stay-in-school students.
Well, we're still left in a great quandary, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. After she went to EEOC with you, did she show any signs at that time of being out of touch with reality?
Senator, again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and at EEOC, I can tell you I was enormously busy and spent an enormous amount of time at the office involved in any number of activities. At EEOC, the assignments, as I remember them, the individual in charge of the office, I had a chief of staff at the time, would take care of the assignments and would be more involved with the special assistants. My suggestion to you, as I've indicated, would be that this committee spend some time with people who work there. This committee has spent, I think, an inordinate amount of time with someone making uncorroborated allegations against me, and should have people who've worked with me, who've not seen any such activity, who did not corroborate these allegations, and who had opportunities to work with and observe Anita Hill.
I believe, sir, that Chairman Biden has answered that and saying that they will come and will be available. But now at the Department of Education and at the EEOC, did any fellow employee of hers, did any supervisor of hers, of anybody else indicate to you that she was out of touch with reality?
The only one employee indicated very strongly to me during my tenure at EEOC that she was, I believe, and I believe this may be a quote, on my enemy. And I refused to believe that and argued with him about that and refused to act in accordance with that.
Well, did he tell you any of the facts surrounding how he arrived at the opinion that she was your enemy?
Senator, as I said, I ignored it. Loyalty is something that was important to me, and I paid no attention to it. And he, in recent days, reminded me of what he told me.
All right, so now, was any other information that came out while you were working with her that would indicate to you that she lived in a fantasy world or anything?
Senator, again, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I was a busy chairman of an agency.
Well, here we are in a perplexed situation, trying to get to the bottom of it, and I just ought to ask you again, do you know of any reason why she might purposely lie about these incidences, that alleged incidents?
Senator, I don't know why anyone would lie in this fashion.
I believe that's all.
Judge, just because we take harassment seriously doesn't mean we take the charges at face value. Just as you have gone through and pointed out that when you work with Anita Hill and up until the moment that the charge is made available to you, to an FBI agent, you thought her to be a respected, reasonable, upstanding person. When a respectable, reasonable, upstanding person, professor of law, someone with no blemish on the record comes forward, this committee has the obligation to do exactly what you would have done at EEOC, investigate the charge. Because this is being investigated, you are making a mistake if you conclude that before all the evidence is in, the conclusion has been reached by this committee, by me, and by my colleagues. You've said some things tonight that are new information to us, assuming them to be true. First time I've heard that you were ever invited, drove home and/or invited into Professor Hill's apartment, have a Coke or a beer. You've told us things that are new. You should not, in your understandable anger, refuse to tell us more. We have to figure this out. For us to have concluded with the person of Professor Hill standing in background that this is just something we're not going to look at would be irresponsible. I don't disagree with you. It was irresponsible the way in which Professor Hill ended up before us. I understand that. And if I had anything to do with it, I'd apologize for it. But in a very much smaller fashion, I'd be under that one myself. So do not, in your anger, tomorrow refuse to tell us more. This is not decided. Witnesses are going to be coming forward. The witnesses that you and your attorneys have asked us to hear. People we want to hear from. You may.
I hope that nobody here, either on this panel or in this room, is saying, the judge, you have to prove your innocence. Because I think we have to remember and we have to insist that Anita Hill has the burden of proof or any other challenger, and not you, Judge. The fact of the matter is the accuser, under our system of jurisprudence and under any system of fairness, should have to prove the case. Judge, we will go into some things tomorrow, and I look forward to questioning again tomorrow, and we wish you a good night's rest, and we look forward to seeing you.
Mr. Chairman,
I want to clarify one thing. I've been asked by one of my colleagues to clarify. I don't think you misunderstood it, but no one else should.
Yeah.
But I was referring to that what warrants...
I wasn't referring to you.
No, I know you weren't. I wasn't referring. I was just referring to my comment.
Yeah.
I was referring to the fact that Professor Hill testified here today that her statement, which we attempted to keep confidential, was leaked to the press. That's what I'm referring to as being the injustice.
Mr. Chairman, if I, just a moment, because I respect Hal Heflin and I came here to the Senate together, that class of 78. Great respect for him, and I see this terrible quandary that he is in because I've watched him work. Intimately, we have worked together on a lot of things. And it's the same thing we all feel, but there's a big difference here and Orla just touched on it, and that is what you said this morning, Mr. Chairman, in your very fair way, and I quote from your statement, and I think we must not forget this, and this is a quote from our chairman this morning: fairness also means that Judge Thomas must be given a full and fair opportunity to confront these charges against him, to respond fully, to tell us his side of the story, and to be given the benefit of the doubt. Now, that's what we're doing here, and if there is any doubt, it goes to Clarence Thomas. It does not go to Professor Hill.
I made the statement. I stand by the statement. That's why not that you need my recommendation, Judge, but tell us what you know. We are trying to determine what happened. It's as simple as that. And the mere fact, as I said, that we take the allegation seriously does not mean that we assume the allegation is correct.
Mr. Chairman, I might just say this. I believe you mentioned Clarence Thomas's attorneys. So far as I know, he has no attorneys. He doesn't need any.
Well, tomorrow we will reconvene. I assume, Judge, it's your choice. I assume you wish to come back tomorrow. The committee is not demanding you come back tomorrow. Do you wish to come back tomorrow?
I think so, Senator. I'd like to finish.
We'll
this matter.
reconvene at 10 o'clock.
Joseph Biden of Delaware, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, has concluded this very long day, which began over 12 hours ago, with orders to reconvene in about another 12 hours at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And Clarence Thomas, nominated to be the 106th justice to serve on the United States Supreme Court, is leaving the chambers of the caucus room in the Russell Senate Office Building. I'm Nina Totenberg from National Public Radio, and with me is Kwame Holman from the McNeil Lehrer News Hour. Well, Kwame, we saw a very, very angry Judge Thomas begin this hearing.
Apparently leaving now.
That is the cheering, his friends and supporters cheering him. You can hear in the background. Judge Thomas's supporters cheering him on as he leaves the Russell Senate Office Building for a night's sleep before resuming the witness stand tomorrow morning. And when he first came here this evening, he said that this was the modern-day lynching of an uppity black man, that this was the equivalent of that he was being destroyed by organized groups who disagreed with him on policy matters. He said this is worse than McCarthyism because at least McCarthy was elected. As the evening progressed, I think, Kwame, he cooled off a little bit, at least when he was questioned by his supporter, Orrin Hatch, and began to give the committee some information that it may conceivably use in support of him. It seemed to me that when he first sat down, he was in an almost untenable position. He said that he hadn't bothered to watch Anita Hill, that he'd listened to enough lies, and basically that he wasn't going to respond to anything except to say that it was a lie. And that seemed to me to put him in a difficult position, at least until Senator Hatch began questioning.
Indeed, he did seem more comfortable once Senator Hatch began to take him through the specifics of the allegations. He responded to them in the same way by denying them categorically, by repeating the denial. But as you say, in the process of answering Senator Hatch, he began to provide, as Senator Biden said at the end there, new information to the committee, such as his assertion that Anita Hill invited him, Judge Thomas, to her house on numerous occasions for a Coke or a beer at the end of the day. That is the kind of contact that Anita Hill did not testify to the committee had occurred, and they plan to explore that.
And I'm certain that he will be asked, or that he will be cross-examined about whether he told that to the FBI. It's just exactly the kind of detail that is sometimes probed fairly or unfairly for an inconsistency, just the way she was probed because she had not included some of the details. Some of the most lurid details of her account were not included in her account when she talked to the FBI. And similarly, if he didn't say that she invited him on a number of occasions to her home, just the two of them to have a Coke or a beer, he's likely to be challenged for that as an inconsistency. But again, we're between a rock and a hard place here. We've got two people of high repute who tell diametrically different stories. Each one says the other is lying, and neither one, well, I should say that he cannot assert what her motive might be. He really declined to attack her character in any way. In fact, Senator Heflin said, "You're her best character witness in some way." And he replied to that, "Talk to the other women who work for me." And this committee will talk to some of the other women who work for him. Although, as I said before, in a court of law, that's not considered relevant. Well, this is all very troubling, very sad, and very dramatic, and as the senators have said, in many ways, tragic. And we will be back here tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern Time to resume hearings on the nomination of Judge Clarence Thomas to the U.S. Supreme Court. Judge Thomas, once again, will be the witness. I'm Nina Totenberg from National Public Radio with Kwame Holman from the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour on Capitol Hill.
Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the financial support of viewers like you.
This is PBS.
Funding for local broadcast of the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by Davis Wright Tremaine, a law firm serving businesses and individuals from offices in Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Alaska, and Washington, D.C.
We now join our regularly scheduled program in progress.
She was lying.
Senator, I am incapable of proving the negative. It did not occur.
Well, if it did not occur, I think you are in a position with certainly your ability to testify to, in effect, to try to eliminate it from people's minds.
Senator, I didn't create it in people's minds. This matter was investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in a confidential way. It was then leaked last weekend to the media. I did not do that. And how many members of this committee would like to have the same scurrilous, uncorroborated allegations made about him and then leaked to national newspapers and then be drawn and dragged before a national forum of this nation to discuss those allegations that should have been resolved in a confidential way?
Well, I certainly appreciate your attitude towards leaks. I happen to serve on the Senate Ethics Committee, and it's been assailed.
Well, but it didn't leak on me. Well, this leaked on me, and it is drowning my life, my career, and my integrity. And you can't give it back to me, and this committee can't give it back to me, and this Senate can't give it back to me. You have robbed me of something that can never be restored.
I know exactly how you feel.
Judge Thomas, one of the aspects of this is that she could be living in a fantasy world. I don't know. We're just trying to get to the bottom of all of these facts. But if you didn't listen and didn't see her testify, I think you put yourself in an unusual position. You, in effect, are defending yourself. And basically, some of us want to be fair to you, fair to her. But if you didn't listen to what she said today, then that puts it somewhat in a more difficult task to find out what the actual facts are relative to this matter.
The facts keep changing, Senator. When the FBI visited me, the statements to this committee and the questions were one thing. The FBI's subsequent questions were another thing. And the statements today, as I received summaries of them, were another thing. It is not my fault that the facts change. What I have said to you is categorical, that any allegations that I engage in any conduct involving sexual activity, pornographic movies, attempted to date her, any allegations, I deny. It is not true. So the facts can change, but my denial does not.
A short time later, Senator Hatch began questioning Judge Thomas.
Now, I'd just like to give you an opportunity, because this is your chance to address her testimony. At any time, did you say to Professor Hill that she could ruin your career if she talked about sexual comments you allegedly made to her?
No.
Did you say to her in words or substance that you could ruin her career?
No.
Should she ever have been afraid of you and any kind of vindictiveness to ruin her career?
Senator, I have made it my business to help my special assistants. I recommended Ms. Hill for her position at Oral Roberts University. I've always spoken highly of her. I had no reason prior to the FBI visiting me a little more than 2 weeks ago to know that she harbored any ill feelings toward me or any discomfort with me. This is all new to me.
It's new to me, too, because I read the FBI report at least 10 or 15 times. I didn't see any of these allegations I'm about to go into, including that one. But she seemed to sure have a recollection here today. Now, did you ever say to Professor Hill in words or substance, and this is embarrassing for me to say in public, but it has to be done, and I'm sure it's not pleasing to you. Did you ever say in words or substance something like, there is a pubic hair in my Coke?
No, Senator.
Did you ever refer to your private parts in conversations with Professor Hill?
Absolutely not, Senator.
Did you ever brag to Professor Hill about your sexual prowess?
No, Senator.
Did you ever use the term long dong silver in conversation with Professor Hill? Had you?
No, Senator.
Did you ever have lunch with Professor Hill at which you talked about sex or pressured her to go out with you?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever
I have had no such discussions, nor have I ever pressured or asked her to go out with me beyond her work environment.
Did you ever tell Professor Hill that she should see pornographic films?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever talk about pornography with Professor Hill?
I did not discuss any pornographic material or pornographic preferences or pornographic films with Professor Hill.
So you never even talked or described pornographic materials with her?
Absolutely not.
Now, three views of what happened today and tonight. There are those of Gergen and Shields, plus one, David Gergen, editor-at-large of U.S. News and World Report, and Mark Shields, syndicated columnist, are our regular analysis team. The plus one tonight is Cynthia Tucker, associate editorial page editor of the Atlanta Constitution, and also a regular contributor to this program. She joins us from Atlanta. David, just looking at this tape back to back, somebody's lying. How does one, whether you're a member of the United States Senate or a distinguished commentator or just an average American decide which one it is?
Or highly distinguished anchor.
Right.
Jim, I think the answer is I'm not sure we know how to do that. We have very contradictory statements. If you listen to Anita Hill in a vacuum, she's very believable. I think if you listen to Clarence Thomas in a vacuum, he's terribly believable too. I think you have to then look at the pattern of conduct that Clarence Hill has demonstrated elsewhere. You have to make some judgment based upon the man's reputation. He has, after all, been through 3 confirmation hearings in the past. He has a number of other people who worked with him. I think he made a very good point tonight. If you really want to know about my life, why don't you only listen to her? Why not call a lot of other women who have worked around me? That would be a fair thing to do.
Mark, tough word, just an angry man who came back here tonight. This was a circus, a national disgrace, that he's the victim of a high-tech lynching, and it's high-tech rather than being hung by a tree. This man is upset.
He is upset. He is a lot more impressive than he was in his entire confirmation hearings, where he was rather passive and too eager to please. He's very much his own man. He's a lot tougher. I think the real test of genius is probably that ability to evaluate between 2 credible, conflicting, and contradictory individuals and their stories. And the senators are truly going to earn their paychecks this week. I mean, the senators not only in the committee, but the senators in the Senate at large. And I think that's, they're confronted with, just as you described it, 2 people who are believable and who have records that are truly unimpeachable. I mean, remarkable records.
Do you agree, Cynthia Tucker, that we've listened to 2 believable people today who are credible?
Absolutely. If we just take into account the testimony that we've heard today, I found Judge Thomas's defense of himself this evening very credible, very spirited, very vigorous, and very convincing. However, I still have not forgotten Professor Hill's very convincing testimony earlier today. So this is truly a very difficult case the Senate Judiciary Committee finds itself with, and that the entire Senate finds itself with. It is a very shrewd strategy that Judge Thomas has decided to take. He is almost not answering any individual questions. Yes, he's saying no, but his larger strategy is to say, I'm above all that nonsense. I'm not sure that I quite believe that he didn't listen to Professor Hill on television today, but once he said that, the Democratic questioner, Senator Heflin, clearly didn't know what to do with that. The Democrats don't have a clear strategy about how to respond to Judge Thomas's very vigorous defense, his anger, and his saying, I'm above all that nonsense. Basically, I'm not going to deal with it.
Hey, what do you think of the way Thomas has approached this tonight?
I think, Jim, he is going to stir a lot of people with his defense because he's done something that's been very interesting. Particularly the conservatives are going to love this. He's thrown this back in the teeth of the Senate because many of the conservatives believe that what we've seen in the last 24 hours, last few days, has very little to do with Anita Hill. It has a lot more to do with the hatred and distaste that an awful lot of people feel for a black person who is not politically correct, who has not gone along with the liberal view. All along they have thought...
Well, he said that. He said, I'm being punished for not kowtowing to an old...
He's gone right to the politics of this hearing. And there are many people on his side who believe that this is mostly political, that this has been an attempt to assassinate his character, that Anita Hill came along and got lured into a story that she wasn't really quite sure she wanted to tell, and that he is, and I think he made another point tonight, which many people are going to agree with. Why wasn't this dealt with by the committee in a closed hearing where they could hear people out? Why did they have to drag both of these people through this national television extravaganza?
Mark? These are serious charges. I mean, I think if we're going to start looking at what happened, we don't begin with this week. We begin with President Bush, who said this was the best qualified man in America. That was hyperbole at best and deceit at worst. I mean, this was not the best qualified. This was a man who was 43 years old and who had been on the Court of Appeals for a little over a year. So, I mean, he was hardly the best qualified, and that an awful lot of people opposed him on that basis, not simply on his lack of political correctness. But I don't think that this is a frivolous, a minor charge that was raised. I mean, it's a very serious charge. This was a man who was in charge of the equal employment and enforcement for the nation for such charges. I mean, if this goes right to the core of his professional performance. Now,
it is a very serious charge, and it should be.
And she's a very serious person. She didn't seem like a reluctant witness to me.
The committee should have dealt with this before there was any committee vote. They should have had a hearing and brought her in and given her her day. She would do that. Justice, she was owed that justice. I think the question he's raising is, why do we have to be out here on national television to settle this kind of thing when you've got two diametrically opposed views? I think that's a very, very good question.
What do you think about that, Cynthia Tucker? Did this thing have to go eventually to national television? Did everybody have to see these two people do what they did today?
Well, I think one of the important things to remember is that Anita Hill didn't want this circus or this travesty, as Judge Thomas has described it. She was very reluctant to open herself up not only to the kind of scrutiny and the kind of attention that she's getting, but unfortunately to all of the scurrilous things that are being said about her as well. That's the reason she was so hesitant. Not because she didn't have full faith and confidence in her version of events, at least she seems to have full faith and confidence in her version of events to me, but because she didn't want all of this aired on national television. But she did want the Senate to take her very seriously when she brought these charges to their attention, and she did not think that she did. Another thing, though, that I'd like to mention in response to something David Gergen said earlier, it may be true that there were lots of liberals out there looking for dirt on Clarence Thomas. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But it is very unlikely that Anita Hill falls in that camp. This is a woman, after all, who worked in the Reagan administration. This is a woman who took her first teaching job at Oral Roberts University. Not exactly a bastion of far-left thinking. This is a woman, I understand, who had at least one class taught by Robert Bork, and Bork thought highly of her. So, while it may be true that this is all to the liberals' advantage, I doubt very seriously that Anita Hill is part of that strategy.
David?